Okay, we're going to talk about complaints and allegations now. This part of the course can be quite difficult, can leave people feeling a bit ugh. But it's important that we cover it. One of my volunteers that helps me on pre-approval training went through an allegation herself against her husband. The family went through it. And she said that when she did her pre-approval training, which was many years ago, nobody talked about allegations or complaints and the risk of this to foster carers. And she said had this been covered, she would have been much more prepared. So I always share that story because I think it's important to explain why we talk about this and make you feel so down in the dumps by doing it. It's about preparing you, equipping you, protecting you. So this is quite an old statistic, and I have got some more recent ones coming up. But in this 3-year period, local authorities reported 10 to 11 allegations per year, per area, against foster carers. Now, when we get an allegation or a complaint against a foster carer, we have to investigate it. Why? It's because of this. Because sometimes it's true. Foster carers harm children. Just like I said before, anyone can harm a child. A foster carer can harm a child. And if you really want to harm a child, then being a foster carer is quite a good route to go down to do that. So because foster carers do harm children, we always have to start from the consideration that this could be true. Now, I know for some foster carers, sometimes this can feel like a betrayal from their social worker. So if you have a really good relationship with your fostering social worker and then all of a sudden they're looking at, did this happen? It can feel like a betrayal. But what I will say to you is we are professionals. As someone who's been in this game for a very long time, I can still be shocked, and you know that anything could happen, basically. That's not to say we don't want it to be true, but we have to consider that this might be true because the child's welfare is paramount and we need to make sure that we are safeguarding and protecting children. I have written there at the bottom a little quote: the vast majority of children entering foster care are provided with safe placements, but in approximately 450 to 550 cases, children across the UK do experience harm each year from those responsible for their care. Okay, so like I said, this does happen. In the 2018 to 19 period, there were 2,705 allegations of abuse against foster carers. That's across the country. 65% were made by children against their foster carers. So this is the children alleging that the foster carer has harmed them. 58% of the allegations were with a nature of physical abuse. So children saying that foster carers had physically hurt them. Of these 2,705, 57% resulted in no further action. So generally it's deemed that there's evidence to suggest it's not true. 26% were referred on, so concerns remained. So at this stage we're saying potentially this could be true or it's been confirmed that it was true. And 17% required continuous monitoring. So sometimes allegations, complaints are unfounded. We can't say it did happen, we can't say it didn't happen. And we might need to monitor for a continuous period because, like I say, we have to maintain an open mind, and protecting that child is our paramount concern. So we've got 3 different categories here: complaints, standards of care concerns, and allegations. So a complaint, again, these will be quite small writing, but you've got your slides in front of you. So a complaint, this can be made formally or informally. Now, as you've already come under the fostering umbrella, you'll have had a visit at this point, have had some communication. You should have been informed of our complaints procedure by now, had the complaints leaflet. So as you will know, we have a formal complaints procedure. We have a complaints team within Hull City Council who deal with formal complaints. If you make a formal complaint, either in writing, by email, by telephone, what happens is we have timescales by which we have to investigate them. We have 3 different stages of complaint, so if things aren't resolved at one stage, they move to the next stage, and ultimately the final stage is where we bring someone in who's independent of the council to investigate a complaint. They can also be made informally, so somebody might contact a social worker and make a complaint that way. Complaints, generally, sometimes, let's say for example the child's family are making a complaint. So complaints I've dealt with before are the foster carers putting the child in the wrong size nappies. I don't like the way that the foster carer is dressing the child. I don't like the fact that the child's called the foster carer mummy sometimes. I don't like these are the kind of complaints we get from parents, from children. My house is too small, my house is too big, foster carers are too old, my foster carers don't do anything fun with me, I never get taken on holiday, I'm not allowed to play out with my friends. And from other members of the council, other members of the community might make complaints and say, foster carer next door's got too many children, it's too loud, I don't think this foster carer copes very well, those kind of things. And what is hoped is that we would come straight out to you, discuss it with you and go from there. A standards of care concern is a concern that's been raised about you by another professional, that you are falling below the national minimum standards, so you are not providing what we deem to be the minimum that we expect of a foster carer. That could be the child's social worker, it could be a fostering social worker, it could be another professional, contact officer. What I would say to you is, we would not expect a child's social worker, for example, to come to fostering and say, I've got a concern about this carer, and then expect fostering to come out and discuss it with you. We're all professionals. If a professional's got a concern about you, they should be discussing it with you themselves. And again, depending on the nature of that, your response will take it from there. An allegation. An allegation is an assertion from somebody. It could be a child, it could be a family member, it could be somebody else, it could be received anonymously. But what they are alleging is that you have caused harm to that child, or have the potential to harm that child, or that child is at risk of harm. Okay, that is what an allegation is. If you've harmed a child, that is a criminal offence. So what this allegation is saying is that you've committed a criminal offence in harming a child. When we receive an allegation of harm, immediately what happens is we have a meeting, an emergency meeting, which is generally chaired by somebody who's called the LADO, which stands for Local Authority Designated Officer, and their responsibility is handling allegations against staff, and you come under that category. The police will attend, and basically everyone who's involved will discuss where we go from there. Now what I'm going to talk to you about is worst case scenario. So worst case scenario, if it is alleged that you have harmed a child and we are not able to deem that to be correct or incorrect, the child's safety is paramount, we need to protect that child immediately. If there's 2 of you in the house and the allegation is against one of you, we may ask that person to leave the home, to go and stay somewhere else while we can investigate the allegation, because it's about separating you from the child, and more often than not we don't want to disrupt the child's overall placement. If you're on your own, we would remove the child. I can't tell you how long an investigation would take, what it would look like, but it would be about those restrictions. For those of you who've got your own children, we would need to take that into account as well, and it may be that our team concerned with that looks at how they're protecting your own children. Again, if you've left the home, that would sometimes that would be satisfactory. If you work with children in employment and you have an allegation of harm made against you, we would need to inform your employer as well. You absolutely have the right not to leave your home. You can say, no, I'm not going anywhere, in which case, like I say, we would need to remove the child, because it's about keeping the child safe. If, worst case scenario, an allegation is made against you, then this is what you should expect. You should expect access to an independent source of support. So there's a service called FIS, Fostering Information Support Service, and FIS will provide you with independent advice, support. You will generally have a named person. They can attend meetings with you, do whatever you need them to do, basically. Hull Fostering will pay their fee, but they are paid to be independent. So they're not working for us, they are independent, there to support and advise you. You have the right to information about the nature of the allegation and who's being accused. What I've put here is what can be discussed may be restricted. If I am a fostering social worker and I come out to one of my foster carers to discuss an allegation, I am going to be restricted by what the police have said I can discuss. So sometimes foster carers can get frustrated and think that we're holding things back. We have to follow what we're told to follow. We're still there as a fostering service to support you, but there will be things that we will not be permitted to discuss, and we will be led by the police. You have the right to give your account of what's happened. Obviously you will be spoken to, potentially interviewed, and you have the right to speak for yourself. You've got the right to access your own independent legal advice and assistance. You are entitled to information on what to expect in terms of timescales. So you are well within your rights to ring up and say, where are you with this investigation? What's happening? What's going on? I haven't heard something for so long. That's absolutely fine, because you have the right to as much information as possible. You have the right to a meeting to resolve matters after the investigation is complete. So if something is unfounded or untrue, you will have a review. And the review is not about, let's go back over everything and interrogate you. The review is about, okay, this has happened, this was the outcome, what does this look like for you as a foster carer now, and how do we move forward now with you as a foster carer? This is really important because, believe it or not, the majority of our foster carers who have allegations made against them still want to continue to foster. I've supported foster carers through allegations, and they've been adamant throughout, we will continue to foster, because people get so much from it and love it so much that even the worst thing that could happen doesn't put them off. And then after you've had that review, you will return to the fostering panel, where a decision will be made and recommendations around your continuing approval. You might be thinking, oh, this is awful. What I will say to you is that number is a small percentage. So only a small percentage of foster carers experience allegations, and in connected persons it's generally much smaller. But what I cannot say to you is it won't happen to you, because that would be unfair. And like I said earlier, it leaves people like my volunteer unprepared and very shocked when it happens. How can you make your home safer and protect yourself from allegations? Know policies and procedures for investigating allegations. So be prepared. You will have a handout in your pack. I'll just get it. So you will have this in your pack. protecting children, supporting foster carers dealing with an allegation. We also have, in your pack, you'll have our policies and procedures around allegations. Keep daily logs, so keep your records. Records are so important, especially where children make allegations. If children make false allegations, records can be vital in showing that this is false, because if you weren't in a place where the child says you was, etc., we can see that actually this may not be true. Make sure you've got your safe care policy up to date. Can't stress that enough. It's about keeping you and the child safe. Have a strong support network around you. So make sure that you've got the support that you need when times get tough. Have as much information on the child as possible. This is crucial. As foster carers, you should have as much information as is available as possible on that child. Please don't ever be told that you don't need this or you don't need to know that. If it's about the child, you absolutely do. The more information we know on a child, the more we can apprehend their triggers, the more that we can care for them in a way that is best for them, and to hopefully prevent allegations, complaints and things going wrong. Be clear on delegated authority. I'm going to talk about delegated authority later. And keep up to date with training. I'm not just saying that because I'm a trainer, I'm saying that because information changes, guidance changes, advice changes, and if you keep up to date with your training, you'll be up to date with the best things to do, the best ways to manage things, the best ways to keep yourself safe.